I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The problem is the whole drug business in this city grew so big that everybody wants to be part of it. Actually, also my address was looked up by Albanian criminals. I was actually a girl who gave it to her boyfriend, who was an Albanian criminal. They looked up more than 100 addresses of lawyers, journalists.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the sins of the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. It's the diamond capital of Europe and the second city of Belgium, but Antwerp is also on par with Rotterdam as the largest entry point for cocaine into the continent. Last year, a record 110 tonnes of the powder was seized at the city's vast port, where authorities are coming under pressure to do more to take on the drug gangs. But it's not really as simple as beefing up police numbers and investing in new scanning equipment. Antwerp is a unique city where smuggling and money laundering are deeply embedded in its history and its culture. Today, I'm meeting with Joris van der Aa, a colleague from the Gazet van Antwerpen, who spent decades on the crime beat here. We discuss diamonds, drugs and dodgy deals as we travel this city and visit its enormous port. This is Crime World, a podcast from SundayWorld.com.
So this is the northern direction. The port is actually there, but the biggest container terminals are actually on the left bank, but that's far from here, and that's quite difficult to film. I know a part of on the right side of the river, where there are also fruit terminals, where there's a lot of activity from organized crime groups. And actually, why Antwerp is so popular is because this is the main port for the importation of fruit, fresh fruit. Also, Rotterdam is important for the importation of fruit, but Antwerp is the most important port for fruit for the rest of Europe. So, in all the supermarkets, fruit comes in from Antwerp or, sorry, I have to break here, and Rotterdam.
So it's fruit and it's...
Fruit. And fruit comes from South America, yeah. So that's one of the main reasons that it arrives here or in Rotterdam.
We're in the car making our way towards this huge port where the number one problem is the amount of fruit entering the food markets of Europe from South America. We may like our cocaine, but we seem to like our bananas too. Like, it's kind of obvious, isn't it, the whole thing? It doesn't take rocket science to work out.
No.
You know, what was that, an old fruit market?
No, that was not a fruit. These are what they call dry docks. It's for dry. In the Middle Ages, when there was wood arriving, wood that was needed for construction, right. It had to dry. And these are the places that it was stored to dry. These were also all the warehouses, all these neighborhoods in the
110 tonnes of cocaine was seized here in Antwerp last year alone. A guesstimate is that 10 times that made it through. So what's the point of doing anything when we're always on the back foot with the dealers? Or do these seizures actually make a difference? And what has been the effect of phone hacks by police, like the Sky ECC one? So it comes in, right? And a tiny percentage of it is seized, which was 110 last year. Look at that beautiful castle.
Yeah.
And there's more for the dry docks. And I suppose once it's in and it starts to break up, it's just almost impossible to try and seize it. And really, in a way, we're getting also flabbergasted by it. But what's the point of seizing it? I mean, seriously, like at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
What is the point of seizing it? Because it's just going to keep flooding in, isn't it? Okay, you might cause somebody somewhere a problem in their pocket and, you know, they lose somebody money, and a seizure will probably result in murders in the streets of Dublin or wherever, but...
Well,
it's just...
but not seizing it is also another
you can't do
a
that
strategy.
either.
So, of course, there and with the technology changing and the success of operations like Sky, ECC, what criminals are telling me that they're actually seizing quite a lot of
They are
cocaine.
seizing quite a lot of it.
I got one main drug trafficker told me that he stopped for a few months or a few weeks because his last 6 or 7 transports were all confiscated, and he said, "Well, I'm losing too much money.
I'm getting
now."
out of this game.
Yeah, he said, "I'm losing too much money now. I have to rethink our strategies." So actually, I think they're seizing quite a lot, but they can make so much money on once they're successful in importing a few thousand kilos, then you can afford to lose quite a lot.
They can still suck up the losses.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, try to.
Supposed to be getting fed up with cocaine as well. Getting fed up with the seizures and fed up with the whole thing. I think it's yesterday's game, and they're going to try and get back into cannabis production in northern Spain.
Could be. Yeah, why not? Yeah, well, there's so much attention on cocaine. I think really that even in Belgium, police are scaling down their capacity to. I don't say that for a fact, but my feeling is that other terrains or other, let's say, specialties in crime like cigarette smuggling, you can make a lot of money with. There's no attention and there's no priority on those forms of crime. And it's all cocaine. Everybody's talking about we have to stop cocaine. There must be war on drugs. We have to the drug mafia, which is true, of course. Something needed to be done in this city because it was like a huge freeway here. It was like they were rolling up everybody, and thanks to Sky ECC, they're pushed back a little bit.
Yeah.
Look, that's the building of the Port Authority in Antwerp. That's a former fire department building, and they put the sort of a diamond on it. I'll drive through next to that building. This is actually the old port of Antwerp, and it's now developed into a residential area with very, very expensive apartments.
Antwerp has a history, of course, and a deeply embedded tradition of smugglers and diamond trading. Its position near the Dutch border makes it a little like our own border towns, where moving goods becomes a career opportunity.
And that was a place, the Mexico Nazi was a company which was working with Mexico. I think of the importation of tropical wood and all that. And that still uses the old name. And you have streets, and you have a Havana Street here. You have all these streets referring to the old days in the port that there.
So this was always a really, like, way back, you're talking hundreds of years ago, this was always an entry point into Europe.
Yeah, it was.
The main one, or one of them anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, there must be a really deep-seated history of smuggling anyway, is there?
It is, and actually, not only the port, but also the Dutch border.
Yeah.
Which is quite near, as you know. And during wartime and also before the European Union and the unified market. I remember my dad working in Holland and living in Belgium. He got controlled by customs every evening at the border.
Oh, really? Really?
And he really got chased, like customs officers on our front door because he was driving a Dutch car, and they said, you cannot drive a Dutch car because you're living in Belgium. Like, we forgot that there were borders.
But it was the same in Ireland. You used to have to stop your car going into the north and show them the boot, and people were going up and they were buying toilet rolls and coming back to Dublin. I remember that as a child. I remember my mother going up over the border.
I remember when my dad had his first, jubilee at the work. Yeah. He was working like 25 years and he got presents like bottles of whiskey and cognac. And he got stopped at the border and he had to pay a fine of 300 guilders, so 150 euros, because he was importing liquor. Those were the days.
Those were the days. I'm like, what? Look at us now.
So smuggling, of course, that's why the south of the Netherlands, these groups of what they call travelers, these crime groups are so dominant in the underworld, more dominant than the Amsterdam guys are.
And are they from where?
Well, from Breda, Eindhoven, Maastricht, the whole southern border area, and they're involved in cocaine trafficking, production of cannabis, and of course methamphetamine, ecstasy. It's the people from the south of the Netherlands who are producing the ecstasy pills. They're really powerful.
And are they coming from a long history of smuggling?
Yeah. They were cheese smugglers, butter smugglers, oil. This is the Port Authority. Now we're entering the actual port area now. This is the border. This is behind our backs is the old port. It's now part of the city of Antwerp, and all that is part of the Port Authority's port area.
Searching the containers over there.
Yeah, you could.
But it's the diamond and the gold trade which has lured the criminals from all over the world into this melting pot of opportunity and money laundering. Near the main train station, the Diamond District is a bustling centre of trade, both legal and illegal. All the big league drug dealers have been collated here at one point or other. Christy Kinahan lived here. And of course, one of the first from Ireland who dipped his toe into the diamond market was George the Penguin Mitchell.
You have to go and buy diamonds in Africa, where it's coming from, and then the origin, the certificates of origin, the conflict diamonds. But if you go there, you go to Angola, I don't know, other countries, you need cash. And not everybody has enough cash, so you have to go somewhere to people who have cash. Criminals. So there you have there's the first link.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you want to transport a lot of money, if you buy some diamonds, it's easy to transport it to the rest of the world and go there and buy it and you have cash again. Or you use it to get a loan at a bank. I'll give you an example. 20 years ago, an Orthodox Jew was arrested together with a jeweler, some other Orthodox Jews from Amsterdam, and someone from South America who was bringing money to Antwerp, and the Jew was changing it. So what he did is put it in a counter and made a few $500 notes and put it back in a locker room, and then somebody else of the organization. And one of the guys who went to Antwerp, because after he was arrested, there was a lot of insecurity in the underworld, because that was their way of laundering the money. Some Russians were very insecure. They were worrying a little bit. And there was this guy from Ireland, and he was really he was also working with this Gus, and he was worried that he could launder his cash. And his name later I learned his nickname was the Penguin. So he came to Antwerp 20 years ago, and he also was investing in Morocco in the tourism industry. He also had a Moroccan wife, I learned 20 years ago. Just later on I knew that he was almost mythical criminal, but we saw people like the Chaser. He was living in Antwerp. Kinan was here. Also, the Penguin was here, and they were exactly in the diamond industry. So I guess it's the place where they try to get the volume of money they earn smaller. It's the first stage of laundering cash. The Penguin.
So
George.
who knows who's floating around the diamond district today doing the business? Who knows what you're seeing?
A lot of
you don't even know what you're looking at.
All the thieves from all of Europe come to Antwerp. If you have, when Kim Kardashian got robbed, the same day the jewels were in Antwerp, and they were melted and disappeared, and they all come to Antwerp. All the thieves, and it's the place where, and what these criminals want, the thieves want cash, and the drug criminals, they want gold. So they buy gold. The thieves are happy with the cash, go back to France, because a lot of traveler groups, thieves groups come from France to Belgium. The Pink Panthers, for example, which is a very notorious gang. A few months ago, there was a nice story. It was published on Vice a few weeks ago. What happened was that the personal assistant of I think the president of Qatar, the personal assistant got groomed by a so-called psychic in the US. And he said, I've got problems, and I'm not happy with my man, I'm not happy with my work. You have to send something personal, and I will cleanse it. And then you feel better. Well, she sent some clothes, some personal stuff to the psychic, and he cleansed it. He said, I still feel very bad. And he convinced her to send all the jewelry from the president of Qatar for at least 200 million euros by FedEx to the US, and then the jewels disappeared. And then a big lawyer company from London was here in Antwerp.
Imagine the row that night at the dinner table.
Looking for. They heard that these jewels were in Antwerp, and they actually were in Antwerp. And later on, they were discovered at I think Christie's in London, and then the whole thing fell apart. Like if there's a diamond or a jewel or an exclusive piece of jewelry is stolen, they immediately come to Antwerp. It will come to the city.
It's a small city, but there are many nationalities of the criminal underworld represented here. The most feared are the Mexicans, who are eyeing up the money that can be made. And more recently, the presence of the Albanians, who are muscling in across Europe and the UK with their unique style of doing business.
The problem is the whole drug business in this city grew so big that everybody wants to be part of it. Everybody. So also not the very talented, and also not the very smart ones. So you get conflicts with people who aren't thinking that business-wise, which results in totally ridiculous small wars, conflicts with hand grenades, shooting at each other's houses, firebomb attacks. So there is more violence, but like what is strange, they're not ultra violent like you see some groups in Amsterdam. Fingers crossed, of course, but we don't see the
wipeout of one group or the two groups going.
No, like the real mafia-style executions. Just a few the last 10 years. People some guys disappeared and ended up getting killed in. I don't know, or what we see a lot is kidnappings, that they take someone and pull them in a car and try to torture them.
I can't understand why that is, though. Is it some sort of they've got this unspoken pact that you don't bring murder to this town because there's too much at stake here?
I think, speaking for the Moroccan community, which is heavily involved in crime and drug trafficking, in particularly, they're all family, you know. They all know each other. Like you said about Dublin, you meet everyone. This is quite a small city, and there's also a different. One criminal once said to me, "Well, there is a reason that we don't kill each other, because actually we're not criminals, we're smugglers." There's a difference with the Dutch underworld, these were all people coming from violent crime, like robbing banks, robbing stores, and they went into the drug business because there was a lot of money to make. And actually, we have a history of being smugglers, and we smuggle. And if it's cigarettes, we smuggle, or cannabis, or cocaine, or something else, we don't mind. It's just a commodity that we smuggle. We're not actually criminals. That was a strange explanation, but I can sense what he's meaning. Is that they don't have a violent culture. They just want to make. Just want to make money.
But you talk about them. Everybody knows one another, and they're all. A lot of them are family.
Yeah,
they're probably
family
intermarried, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what made when that sort of tit for tat feuding kind of smaller events exploded in the Irish scene.
Once it goes wrong, it can go.
So dangerous.
It can go wrong very badly.
So they all knew one another. They knew everything about one another. The two sides that formed once worked together, so they knew routines. They knew where they lived. They were actually living cheek by jowl as well, and that's in a very short period of time. That feud resulted in 18 murders within literally a couple of years.
We can actually also, if we know there's a conflict and there's a, like say they attack one another's house, we can almost predict where the next attack will be. Because it's easy to look up. You can look into companies and that's also very easy for them, but the degree of violence is still under control. We don't like it. As normal citizens, it's not good to have sometimes 4 or 5 attacks in one street in a month. For people living there, it's terrible. But let's be honest, it's still not the Netherlands. It's still not Ireland, or it's not like the real lethal violence, the fatal. We don't see that much casualties, and let's hope it stays that way. But as you say, one time it can explode and then it's out of control.
Hand in hand with criminals comes the corruption that goes with their dirty money. One of the standout discoveries from the Sky ECC hack was the levels of corruption that goes on here. While Antwerp doesn't have a high level or a problem with gangland murder, the business of crime has filtered into every aspect of civil society.
This is Europort. Here's where a lot of fruit is coming in. It's called the Belgian New Fruit Wharf, which is also a place heavily implicated. The company is not implicated, but people working there actually go there working because they know we can be at service for criminal groups. Here you see this what they call reefers. That's especially for fruit. These are there's a cooling installation. There you can see it. So the fruit stays fresh. It stays in a constant temperature because bananas will be not good anymore if they have the travel. So I'm going to try to.
It's like a city out here in itself.
Yeah,
it's so important.
Let's drive a little bit further.
Have any of those that were implicated, we were talking about the Sky hack, that there was quite a few port workers and police and even local authority people had been kind of caught up in it. They were the first layer they were supposed to be going after from a policing point of view. Has any of that come before the courts yet?
Yeah. Last week we had convictions of people working in a hospital who had access to our national database with addresses, and she was bribed to look up addresses of port workers.
Oh, really?
In our national register. So they look and go and find people who have access to information, and it can be in a hospital, it can be a secretary of a doctor, it can be people working at our Ministry of Finance. the tax administration. Actually, also my address was looked up by Albanian criminals.
And when did you find that out?
During court.
Oh,
I didn't
my
even got a
God.
warning. It was like, and Joris van der Ra. Okay, that's me, fuck. I never was warned, or I don't know why they needed my address. Also my colleague, Sam, from Gazet van Antwerpen. I was actually a girl who gave it to her boyfriend, who was a Albanian criminal. So they looked up more than 100 addresses of lawyers, journalists, people working in court. Yeah. If you're a parent and you have a 20-year-old son who wants to make good money, I mean, legally, you can make a good living in the port of Antwerp, but it's not a nice place to work anymore because certain areas are so important for the drugs mafia that everyone, you can't avoid being in contact with them. You will be. You have to be very strong and very brave to resist the pressure of those groups. All the new ones they're so in the companies already, infiltrated, that as long as there's a new guy working, immediately they try to get him into and to try to get him into their network and do something for them. And if possible, bribe him. So
it's like obviously The Wire. You remember that series, The Wire?
But it's worse than that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get conflicts between groups because everybody is corrupt on a certain place. Everybody's working together with, and if you're then someone who dislikes crime and dislikes drugs and you don't want to get involved, it's nearly impossible in some places.
You know, is there evidence that they've gone forward then and approached them? And threatened them?
Yeah. No, threaten them. No, try to bribe them.
Right.
Try to get some things done, and even someone you have in the port of Antwerp. There is an organization called SEPA which does all the administration for the workers that they get paid and all that. And even there, someone gave information to criminals about people who are asking money in front because they were short of money, or who had what they call if you have debts, they can take a part of your money every month. And that information was given to the criminals, so they knew who they could make a profile of who was vulnerable to corruption.
And of course, it's easier to bribe people than it is to force them.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because you have.
It's better to keep people happy than.
See, it's all business.
Yeah.
It's all just like normal business.
Yeah, but there's some Dutch criminal groups who don't understand that, and that they're working with full force, or some groups from former Yugoslavia, or from Serbia or Bosnia, who are extremely violent and think you're gonna do that for us. But it's like a lot of what they call last-minute jobs. Fuck, we have a problem. There's a lot of cocaine, we can't get it out.
And the Albanians, are they long time in the business here, or are they new? Because they seem to be emerging.
They have their networks here already from in the late 90s.
Yeah.
But then they were more involved in human trafficking, like prostitution rings, extortion, like just threatening people and asking money. And now they're because they teamed up with let's say the 'Ndrangheta, the Italians.
Right.
The fact that they are so strong is that because they like to do business with their own people, and they like to control the whole market, like not only the importation in the ports of Antwerp, but also the wholesales and also dealing on the streets. They keep it in their own group. Here you have people specialized in importing, specialized in helping other groups to get it out of the port. It's a specialty. And this is what the local groups are specialized in. They have contacts, and actually what they do is they sell their contract. We have containers, we have a driver, we know people who can manipulate the train. We got information in the companies, and they're selling their contacts and their know-how. And that's actually some groups are financially powerful enough to invest in own transport lines and own loads of cocaine. But what the Albanians do is they build a whole network from themselves, and they make money at every level of the business. And they're disciplined, and they're willing to use violence if it's needed.
Their reputation goes before them, though, doesn't it, as well? The Albanians, you know, they're very feared.
They're feared because they're disciplined, and they will take action. But they also guarantee we will deliver. So if we have a deal, we'll come up to the deal, our part. We will do our part of the deal. So they have a reputation of being trustful as well, and not to mess with. And there you have the image of the Moroccan groups is cheating each other, stealing.
Willful violence, is now definitely going to be linked to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're very, they're very superior, I think, as well. They have an attitude of superiority that, well, maybe the Albanians do too, do they?
But the Italians also have it. They see themselves as the elite of... And we have Italian activity as well in Belgium, together with the Albanians. We saw it in a recent investigation in another part of the country, but there were also searches here in this city. There has been Ndrangheta activity in Rotterdam, in Antwerp as well. So the whole world is here. The thing that's most feared is that Mexicans try to get a foot here in the country. And it started with they produce a lot of methamphetamine together with the Dutch groups. And in Spain and also here in this part of the country, they try to get a part of the cocaine business as well. And I think the police fears that if that happens, we're going to see different levels of violence.
Yeah.
Because they see that Europe is the markets.
Yeah.
First they took the American markets, the US markets, and then the Colombians concentrated on Europe because the Mexicans took it from them. And now they see that the European market is far more important than the US markets. In Spain, they see Mexican cartel activity, and also in Amsterdam, they arrested some Mexicans trying to get involved in the drug business. And I hear from some criminals that they're trying to team up with Mexicans. So it is happening.
Yeah.
And like one of our prominent drug traffickers, I don't like to name people. We intercepted a small film where Mexican traffickers in Mexico, in the woods in Mexico, are threatening a guy from Belgium. His niece got murdered. His niece got murdered here in Antwerp, and he said that guy who was living in Dubai, and someone from Mexico is threatening him with his face recognizable. And he points him. He said, "Mister, you have to do what you promised, or we come to your door." Like, okay, this is not a nice film to see. I think what the police fears is that the Mexicans are trying to get food on the continent here into the cocaine business, because the Mexicans, of course, see that there's a lot of money to be made.
Authorities in Antwerp are trying desperately to clean up this port. 100 extra officers have been promised to monitor shipments with new high-tech X-ray equipment on the way. But like every aspect of the war on drugs, it seems like a losing game, with cocaine flooding in on an unstoppable wave. And all the while, demand for Colombia's finest export continues to grow, as European users party hard while funding an incoming storm of narco terrorism.